Joe Biden is getting humiliated by Vladimir Putin. The president of the United States cannot stand up to the president of Russia. It's making the entire country look bad. And Joe Biden just looks baffled, bewildered, and unable to handle this job. And that's really, really bad for a variety of reasons. Right now, the left is coming out saying Republicans, conservatives, people on the right, they want Joe Biden to lose to Vladimir Putin. They are traitors. Yeah, tweets across the board saying something like that. But it's not true. Nobody in America wants Putin to do better than Joe Biden. Okay, maybe some people, sure, but most people, conservatives, Republicans, or otherwise, no. It's just a reality that Joe Biden is experiencing major cognitive decline and is unable to actually handle these tense circumstances. What did we see? In one story, Biden appears to have a cheat sheet with him. That's right, he brought flashcards with him in his meeting with Putin because he couldn't handle it on his own. In one instance, at the G7, he's wandering around, seemingly confused, and everyone busts out laughing at him. In another instance, he tries to correct Boris Johnson about introducing the president of South Africa when Boris already did it, and then everyone once again laughs at the man. This is not what America needs to be showing right now. We need to show strength, unfortunately for us, and how our system works. Joe Biden is president. And this won't bode well for us. It's easy to make fun of an old man. I know. And I'm not all about just mocking. I don't like making fun of an old guy who's clearly not with it. It's sad. It's depressing. And it scares me. Now, for any other regular old person, I'm not going to try to be mean to an old person. But it is easy to point out he's getting lost and he doesn't know what's going on. But let's talk about serious news. As Joe Biden is going to be meeting with Vladimir Putin, Russia launches the largest war games in the Pacific since the Cold War, just west of Hawaii, forcing the U.S. to scramble the Air Force. China sends a bunch of planes to circle around Taiwan. At a time when war may be on the horizon, the last thing we need is a feeble, senile old man struggling to speak to one of America's adversaries. I don't think Russia is the most serious or most threatening of adversaries, but maybe number two behind China. China sees this. They know the weakness of Joe Biden, and so does Russia. The left tried to come out and claim that Donald Trump was a Russian asset who is ponying up the dictators and giving them whatever they want. And it's Joe Biden who backs off and allows Russia to build the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's the Gazprom pipeline. It's almost like the U.S. is admitting they've lost the conflict in the Middle East. They're giving up. Russia is going to control the price of energy, of natural gas in Europe. Joe Biden is seemingly showing the world that the U.S. is basically done. We can't defend our allies in the Southeast, in Southeast Asia. We can't defend our allies in Europe. And Joe Biden, his flashcards, what do they say? It's Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault. Don't blame me. It's Trump's fault. This is what happens when politics is based on we hate the one guy. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Joe Biden is the end-all, be-all worst president we've ever had or that everything's his fault. Certainly, Trump was a step off of the normal beaten path when it comes to presidency, to the presidency. And his behavior was unbecoming in many instances of a president. But he was strong and he freaked people out. I can complain about his behavior. Many people do. But at the very least, he wasn't just giving up and giving in. Now, where it gets worse is that at the same time, we have the internal conflict. The Biden's administration targeting patriots and militia groups. I'm using patriot facetiously. That's kind of how they describe it. Going after, it's a war on terror being brought home. I think these things, these signs, these actions are indicative of a faltering United States. And that means China could circle Taiwan, invade, and we'll do nothing to stop it. Not that we should, or I don't know, but there's nothing we can do. We can't defend our allies in Southeast Asia. China will expand. Russia is already expanding, and Biden can't do anything. Outside of these circumstances, our own journalists were blocked by Russian security. We're being humiliated as a country. And no, I don't want it to happen, but this is the reality. Maybe come 2024, something will change. Trump will win again. I don't know. But let's read the news. And you know what? I'm going to start with Vladimir Putin just insulting and humiliating Joe Biden. And then we're going to get to the serious part, the war part. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to get access to exclusive members-only content from the Timcast IRL podcast. But also, Your membership, when you sign up and you are giving money to this organization, you are helping us grow. We have recently added a newsroom. We are now putting out articles. We are going to be hiring many more journalists in the next couple of weeks, and we are going to have a full newsroom section. The relaunch of the website with the new newsroom is going to be in just about a couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks, and we are pushing as hard as we can. You're not just buying access to a members only section. You are funding real reporting. And so I'm greatly appreciative of this. So I will say this. If you think we do a good job here at timcast.com, then please consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel, but more importantly, sharing the URL right now on as many platforms as you can. If you think we're all right, but we deserve better than CNN's, we deserve more ratings than CNN, share this video right now and we'll show people. Of course, I'll tell you this. We have this story, Biden's cheat sheet. I'm sure the left, the Democrats, they don't care to hear it. They don't care to hear what's really going on. I have been critical of Donald Trump. Less so than the Democrats, of course, but I think they're insane. It's fine if you say Donald Trump was bombastic and many of his meetings with foreign leaders worried people. I can accept that. But the dude was a loose cannon. At the very least, people were like, he's unpredictable. He's on time. That was one of the comments. He's unpredictable, a bit sporadic, but at the very least, you understand him. Joe Biden's just not even there. What was it? One report from Jack Posobiec, Trudeau was overheard saying he thinks Kamala Harris will be president before the end of 2022. It's worrying. Here's the story from the New York Post. Biden appears to have a cheat sheet at summit meeting with Putin. They say Biden seemed to be hiding notes from Putin, a former KGB agent, as they sat on opposite sides of a small table inside the historic Villa Lagrange in Geneva. As journalists recorded the scene, Biden peered at his paper before tucking it into his inside pocket of his suit jacket. Biden, 78, sat cross-legged in his chair while the 68-year-old Putin, who is shorter and thick around the middle, sat slumped with his feet planted wide and his hands on his thighs. The scene unfolded as the two world leaders barely made eye contact during introductory remarks that were interrupted by a shoving match between American reporters and Russian security personnel. The chaos largely drowned out Biden's comments, which included calling the U.S. and Russia two great powers. Biden also nodded after a reporter asked if he trusted Putin, which the White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield quickly walked back by tweeting that the president was very clearly not responding to any one question, but nodding in acknowledgement to the press generally. What? I can't do it. This is insane. Every time Biden says something insane, what do? They come out and they're like, no, actually, Biden didn't mean it. Amazing. He was just nodding to the press. It's just randomly. Incredible. He said just 2 days ago in his presser, verify, then trust. At one point, Biden also appeared confused about whether he would be fielding questions, asking Secretary of State Antony Blinken, I'm not sure how this will work, one at a time. It was unclear what Biden's notes said, but he's been photographed in the past holding a chart with the names and faces of reporters, apparently marked with numbers showing in which order he planned to call on them during his first news conference in March. During that White House event, Biden also had a printed card that said infrastructure, followed by a list of bullet points and notes on topics including China, bridges, and roads. Despite the prepared talking points, Biden mistakenly said the U.S. ranked 85th globally in the quality of its infrastructure before correcting himself to say 13th. These are important in negotiations. Now, people might come out and say, Tim, Joe Biden's just a figurehead. There are other people in government who are going to be handling this stuff for him and dealing with Putin. When Joe Biden is sitting in front of the entire world and says the wrong country 3 times, which he did, that has an impact. Now you're going to have people in Libya hearing Biden say, we got to get Russia to help with Libya. And people in Libya are like, oh, okay. And that has an impact. Could you imagine if he actually negotiates on behalf of some arrangement with Libya when he means Syria? And then Russia's like, you got it, buddy. It's insane. We can't have this. I don't know what you do. Do we invoke the 25th, remove Joe Biden? Then what? We get Kamala Harris? Wouldn't be surprised. That's what Trudeau was saying. I give you now the humiliation of us and Joe Biden. Tim Young. Summary of the interaction between ABC journalists and Putin. ABC. Why do you kill and imprison your political opponents? Putin. America did it on 1/6. Next question. Okay. It's a summary. Clarification. If I got it wrong earlier on in the segment, he's making a point. Putin was asked about all of these things with his opposition, and he just points to what the U.S. is doing. Matt Vizier. He talked about what his mom said, President Putin says, recounting his meeting with President Biden. Amazing. This is what we get when President Biden, with a President Biden, a man who clearly should not be president. But you know what? It's like that Atlantic article said. During the 2020 election, they said, Joe, stay alive, Joe Biden. All we need is your corporeal form. Those people were willing to watch the United States burn to the ground because they hated Donald Trump. And here's a message to my Democrat friends, all the people I know from back in Chicago. You had no business posting about things for which you have no idea what's going on. You had nothing to do with politics. You never read an article in your life. You followed nothing. And then you came out and yelled, well, the TV said Trump's bad, so only vote for the senile guy. I'm not literally saying he's senile. Okay, I'm just being a bit hyperbolic. But that's what happened. I've been following politics literally my whole life. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert foreign policy master or anything like that. But I've been following the news. I've been reading so much about this. There's a lot I don't know. But I certainly know more than the people who come on and lecture me about foreign policy when it comes to Trump. I've actually been to some of these countries. I've experienced the civil unrest. And I can assure you, I would rather have a Donald Trump than a Joe Biden. Trump was, I'll put it mildly, far from perfect, like very far. Trump supporters thought he was perfect. I certainly did not. I think some of his behavior was a bit, but at the very least, strength. You know what it was about Trump? The dude would come out with in these meetings and be like, no, excuse me, no. And at the very least, you knew that people were worried in dealing with him. When Vladimir Putin would have a conversation with Trump, he's kind of like, okay, this guy might change. He's kind of off. He's kind of aggressive and abrasive. So you got to be careful. Joe Biden, confused. Can't even say certain words properly. Putin was laughing at him, figuratively, sitting there slumped over with his legs open like this guy is so pathetic. Look how they handle our press, our pathetic press, bending the knee, falling down, unable to push back against Russian security. Daily Mail. Russian security manhandled U.S. press and stopped them entering the Biden-Putin summit. White House aides scream at agents blocking scrum of reporters. Now this is what you get. Biden and Putin summit begins in chaos as members of the press scramble to get inside the Swiss villa. Russian and Swiss security guards manhandled and shoved reporters, then blocked them from entering. Some American reporters were left outside while Biden and Putin sat down for the first photo op. Inside, photographers blocked cameras and journalists shouted questions to Biden and Putin. It meant members of the media could barely hear what was said as Putin's translator struggled to answer. And there you go. Vladimir Putin is walking all over us. You know, they said that Donald Trump was the agent of Russia, that he was pawning up to Russia. Dude, it's just so absurd what we're seeing right now. From the BBC, Nord Stream 2, Biden waives U.S. sanctions on Russian pipeline. This is one of the greatest gifts to Russia in the past 100 years. Okay, maybe that's a little hyperbolic, but Joe Biden's absolutely caving. The BBC reported on May 20th, the Biden administration has waived sanctions on a company building a controversial gas pipeline between Russia and Germany. The U.S. also lifted sanctions on the executive, an ally of Russia's Vladimir Putin, who leads the firm behind the Nord Stream 2 project. The move came in a report on Russian sanctions delivered to Congress by the Department of State. Critics say the pipeline is a major geopolitical prize for the Kremlin. The project, which would take gas from the Russian Arctic under the Baltic Sea to Germany, is already more than 95% complete. The Department of State report notes that Nord Stream 2 AG and its chief executive, Matthias Warnig, a former East German intelligence officer, engaged in sanctionable activity. But it concludes that it is in the U.S. national interest to waive these sanctions. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden shut down the Keystone pipeline. But Russia's pipeline is okay? It's a different pipeline. It's natural gas. Keystone, I believe, actually, I think Keystone was going to carry more than just crude, but mainly crude, I believe, up from Canada and down to the U.S. What's going on? Why is Joe Biden shutting down our energy independence and then allowing Russia to control natural gas into Europe? It's amazing, isn't it? Everything they said about Trump. By all means, I'm willing to hear your criticisms of Donald Trump, always, because I'm not playing stupid games. My personal opinion, and maybe my bias, Trump was way better. And that's really what it's about. The left will come out and say, you didn't complain about Trump when he did this, that, or otherwise. And I'm like, I don't think what Trump did was as alarming as what we're seeing happen with Biden. Trump has got his issues, but still was able to display strength, a bit too much of it sometimes. Joe Biden is the opposite. We are going to get walked all over. And that's when it comes to war. That's what really scares me. The Daily Mail reports, Putin pressures Biden before talks as the two presidents prepare to face each other in Geneva within hours. U.S. stealth jets launch in response to Russia's biggest naval exercise since the end of the Cold War, 300 miles off Hawaii. And dozens of Chinese warplanes circle Taiwan after American carrier group arrived. Now, the first thing I saw when I saw the story was, the first thing I thought was fear that we are entering some kind of war. I mean, we're dangerously close. Thucydides' trap, the fourth turning, whatever you want to cite. And then I thought about it. I said, no, I don't think we're going to go to war. I think these drills are basically a slap in the face to America, to its president, and to its military. They're basically saying we can do whatever we want and y'all can't do nothing about it because your president is a bumbling, mumbling fool. Joe Biden is meeting with Putin. They're going to be talking. And this is what they do. Putin knew what he was doing. Putin engaged this. China was close behind, knowing that we're occupied. And that's when things get scary. Russia and China have heaped pressure on Joe Biden with provocative military drills in the Pacific and South China Sea ahead of the U.S. president's showdown with Vladimir Putin in Geneva. USAF stealth fighters were scrambled to Hawaii on Sunday as Moscow launched its biggest naval exercises in the Pacific since the Cold War. While in the South China Sea, an American carrier group has steamed in as the Chinese warplanes tear around Taiwan. Biden will finally sit down with Putin on Wednesday for their first presidential summit on Lake Geneva. The choice of venue harking back to the Cold War meeting between Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev in 1985. Relations between the two sides are similarly cool, at their lowest ebb in decades after Putin's outlandish cyber attack against the U.S., aggression towards Ukraine, poisoning of Alexei Navalny, and intervention in the Middle East. Now, of course, these statements from the Daily Mail, this is the Western perspective 100%, that Putin absolutely did these things. I mean, he did take Crimea and Ukraine. It is very likely that he did go after Alexei Navalny, trying to poison him. It's very likely that Russia was engaged in cyber attacks against the U.S. Now, Russia, of course, denies all of these things. And the U.S. is in very little position to actually make any statements about Alexei Navalny because we're watching right now the AG go after militia groups, the white supremacists, they say. But in reality, the people on 1/6, as Putin said, came in with political demands. That's true. What should have happened? People who come in with political demands should be pushed out. The people who committed acts of violence should get charged for their acts of violence. Many of these people who were arrested were just walking around inside and told by police it was okay. Putin's got a point right there. I don't like Vladimir Putin. I don't want him to make a point, but the U.S. is faltering. And if they can't recognize it, well, then we're in serious trouble. They say Putin arrived at Geneva Airport early this afternoon, a day after Biden, ahead of the meeting at the Villa de la Grange, a stunning chateau overlooking Lake Geneva, ripe for photo ops and small talk filled with bookcases. Trompe l'oeil, sealing details in a colorful rose garden. I probably pronounced that wrong. L'oeil, however you pronounce it. Putin is due to arrive first at the venue. So as we know, they've already met. The bigger issue is, check this out. Chinese Air Police 500 AWACS, similar to the one that encroached on Taiwan on Tuesday, is seen above. Taiwan reported the largest ever incursion into its ADIZ with 28 warplanes breaching the identification zone. I mean, it's only a matter of time. I certainly hope that China just decides to wait until someone else is in office, even if it's Kamala Harris, I guess. Don't like her either. But is that what the game is? Kamala Harris looks better by comparison. When Kamala was running for president, nobody wanted her. She didn't get a single delegate. Joe Biden ends up winning because people hate Trump. And now we're looking at Biden being like, he's awful. I'll take Kamala instead. That's the nightmare scenario. Unfortunately, it's true. I hate to admit it, but Kamala is much more competent than Joe Biden, even though she's particularly incompetent. Anyone at this point would be better than either of them, but is this what we're going to get? Apparently so. They go on to say, or the Daily Mail, when they show many of these photos, look at this. This is actually amazing footage. Russia tests naval exercise. This is footage from Russia being released showing this naval exercise, basically taunting and flaunting their military power. They say there will be another chance to glimpse the two men together in a small meeting with only the two leaders, Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Sergei Lavrov as note takers. A large meeting will have 5 staff members each, and Biden is set to hold a press conference after the estimated 5 hours of meeting. So this did happen. Putin described Biden with a double-edged career man label, saying he spent virtually his entire adulthood in politics. Putin said the remark this week by way of contrast with former President Trump, who he met at the infamous Helsinki summit, presenting Trump with a soccer ball and standing alongside Trump while he accepted Putin's denials of election interference in 2016. Now, let me point something out. I'm sure the left will come out, the Democrats, and say Putin was ponying up to Donald Trump because Trump was serving him and working for him and blah, 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 blah. Vladimir Putin was cordial with Donald Trump because Vladimir Putin was probably worried about Donald Trump. Not so much as he would be with, say, Hillary Clinton, to be completely honest. But he knew that Trump was stern. He knew that Trump cared about America. And he knew there was opportunity, so he had to play it safe. He couldn't just push Trump around because Trump was bombastic, aggressive, sporadic. But he also knew that Trump's interests were with the American people. And that meant we don't need war in the Middle East. Now, there's opportunities for Russia, for sure. And because of that, the Democrats claimed Trump was working for Russia. Garbage nonsense. Trump just wanted, first and foremost, to make America great again, I suppose. Now, Joe Biden carries on the torch of Hillary Clinton. But Joe Biden can't even speak straight. And there you go. That was a funny moment. I couldn't even speak straight. But you have Vladimir Putin, who knows that in the public eye, he can make America look weak. And he did. At the G7, Biden's gaffe at G7 summit sparks laughter from world leaders. Why? Why did this happen? Well, you know what? I can certainly say I understand how the left felt about Donald Trump in many circumstances. The only problem was that many of these circumstances were lies. Remember when Donald Trump was feeding the koi fish with Shinzo Abe of Japan? And the camera zooms in, and then Trump just throws all the food into the pond, and everyone made fun of him. The left was like, oh no, he's humiliating us and embarrassing us. And then it turned out the footage was edited, and Trump actually was just doing what Shinzo Abe did. He was following suit, and it was no big deal. You see, that's the problem. Biden actually is embarrassing us. Trump, there were certain circumstances, sure, don't get me wrong. But the media was lying about Trump. It was projection. Everything they say about the Republicans and Trump, it's actually what the Democrats are doing. They say Trump is a Russian asset. Yeah, well, who just signed off on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? That was Joe Biden. Amazing. Look at this story. President Biden embarrassed himself at the G7 when he tried to correct British Prime Minister Boris Johnson for not introducing the president of South Africa, even though Johnson already did. The blooper, one of several Biden made amid the series of meetings, prompted laughter at his expense at the start of a roundtable discussion in Cornwall, England. The awkward incident took place on Saturday, which, according to Sky News, which posted the transcript online. After mentioning how the visiting dignitaries had brought some pretty spectacular weather with them, Johnson introduced Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. At that point, Biden, seated between Johnson and Emmanuel Macron, interjected. And the president of South Africa, Biden 78 said while pointing across the table. Apparently taken aback, Johnson said, and the president of South Africa, as I said early on. Oh, he did, Biden said, looking befuddled as his words trailed off. I did. I certainly did, Johnson said. Those around the table then began laughing. And Macron turned to Ramaphosa. You get a mention twice, Cyril, he said. Oh, this is just humiliating stuff, isn't it? Not as humiliating as the story I covered a couple days ago. Watch, Biden appears to get lost at G7. World leaders laugh at him as Joe Biden comes to his rescue. Man, that's creepy stuff. Joe Biden walking into this seating area and he's looking around all confused and it's gross. This dude got it. You got it. Come on, man. Come on, Joe. What are you doing, man? Come on. He walks in all befuddled. People start yelling questions. He's like, huh? What? And then Jill runs up and grabs him. Everyone busts out laughing. I'll stress it again. Do I want Joe Biden getting humiliated? No, he's representing us. That's it, man. From the inside, the U.S. is being torn apart. Critical race theory in schools, the federal government announcing they're going to go after right-wing groups, the flying of Black Lives Matter flags at our embassies. The U.S. government says, as part of our effort to stop white supremacy, we're going to put equity in all of our institutions, this cult ideology. The U.S. is fractured. I have bad predictions for where the U.S. goes from here. And the world knows it. Maybe it's all just part of the same issue. It's Joe Biden's weakness, the splitting and the fracturing in the United States. It's all one problem, and these are just symptoms. The United States empire is faltering. You call it whatever you want. We're unable to maintain our position around the world for a variety of reasons. At home, our economy has been in shambles for a variety of reasons. Activists are angry and demanding change, but the establishment refuses to relinquish control. And as we've seen with many revolutions, you will get a despot who says, I'm in charge and only I can make this country work. Mark my words, you will regret it when I'm gone. And if only those people just said, we will see to it there will be a peaceful transition of power, maybe many of these Arab Spring nations wouldn't be turning into slave states, wouldn't be in a state of civil war. Maybe if in Egypt or Libya, those who are in charge just said, I'm losing this one. Okay, people of the country who are angry, what should we do? I will gladly abdicate my power, whatever you want to call it. The establishment right now in the U.S. is doing very much what every despot does, asserting that only they and only they can make sure that everything works properly. They will lie, cheat, steal, and burn everything to the ground to make sure they're in charge because they're despots. This country was never supposed to be that way. Joe Biden should not be president. Donald Trump was not part of the inside baseball that is DC politics, but they couldn't have it. They couldn't have an outsider coming in. They were angry. They were so angry. How dare you threaten our power? Only we know what's best for you. So here we are. Now, as I often say, I could be wrong. Maybe it's this right now where it all just stops, right? I have to say it. Maybe this level of escalation and humiliation, it's all going to change from here. Maybe the people realize that Biden isn't capable. Maybe they realize that Joe Biden is not the person who should be president. And then maybe everything starts to get better here in the United States. Maybe changes come to Congress and to the Biden administration. Joe Biden says, maybe I'm not up to the task. Maybe. Or maybe they double down. Maybe it just keeps getting worse. Maybe the Democrats refuse to ever relinquish power, continue blaming Republicans, accusing them of being fascists. Maybe Antifa and other extremists continue carrying out destruction in the streets for which the police will not arrest them. The police departments continue to crumble. The escalation of violence continues. I have no reason to believe things are going to lighten up. Sorry, I'm not trying to be overly pessimistic. Some people say being a doomer. I'm not trying to be doomer. I'm trying to be realistic. But that's why I say, okay, maybe. Let's just say it all just stops here. Things turn around and get better. To be fair, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Timcast.com, my website's doing really, really well. Thanks to all of you who are members. We're bringing on new journalists, and I think we're going to have a serious impact. I think we're going to have a big impact on news. We're going to do original reporting. I am going to be sinking in as much money as possible into doing good journalism because I am not here to enrich myself. I am not here to cater to any shareholders, of which it's just me. I own the company. No, I'm here to take the money we make from the company to hire journalists. I don't want to buy a Ferrari. I want to buy good journalism. I want to see good reporting. I want to see impactful reporting. So there's good news there. And you know what? To be fair, I'm actually confident. So while I can look at all of this stuff and be worried about it and think that we're headed for dark times, truth be told, when it comes to the operation we have here at Timcast with the show we're doing and the people we're hiring, things are going fairly well. And that means maybe this is the point at which I and many others start to reverse what's happening. So maybe it really is that turnaround. Maybe me calling out the failures that is the Biden administration and the creepy encroachment of authoritarianism. Maybe this actually makes a difference. Why? Well, look, the big lefty vlogs that got us into this mess by lying to people, they're failing. They're shrinking. Some will survive, but the anti-establishment is doing well. Of course, the battle rages on. Censorship is a real problem, which is one of the reasons why we had to start timcast.com. It's one of the reasons why we need you to be members. But now I'm getting more and more confident. I'm less worried about getting banned. There was a while where I was like, if I get banned, it's over. We're just out. Now I'm like, if we get banned, we have the website and traffic's pretty good and membership is great. And we haven't even launched the full version, which starts hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I know I said that like a week ago, but we're going to extend QA, and it's always better just not to say for sure, but I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks, the site is done. Then we go into QA testing, then we go live, and then we are going to have more and more reporters. So far, we've got one person who just joined. Articles already popping up. Sandra Fairbanks. You know her, you love her. She's got her feistiness on Twitter. For sure, her articles are pretty straightforward. It's good news reporting. And we're going to be adding a fact checker who will work at a different building, who will independently fact check all of these stories. We're going to have our own fact checking unit, probably a handful of people who will fact check our own stories. It'll make our reporting better. Then we're going to have reporters going on the ground. We're going to have a DC Bureau, a foreign policy editor. We're going to be doing real news because we don't have a political agenda. Some people may, but you know what? Our fact checkers will be there to put a stop on things. And you know what we'll do? We will have some conservatives, some liberals, and some moderates, and we'll create a balanced room where people can argue and debate over what's true and what isn't. And then we can write up these things about how we view these stories from these perspectives. It's not an easy solution. It's not an easy problem to solve. But we have to do something. And so I'll leave it at this. Joe Biden may be humiliating us. Maybe this will be a smack in the face for many regular people when they see it. Maybe through the expansion and creation of news that we're doing, more and more people will see what's happening. So I'll say this. Let's be optimistic, I guess. I can be worried. I can make these videos, but we're doing something about it. And so are you. By watching this video, by sharing this video, by liking, by subscribing, by becoming a member at timcast.com. It's the first step towards doing something. And it's one of the easiest things you can do. So I'm eternally grateful for everybody who's supporting the efforts we're putting into this. I'm hoping that we can maybe turn things around. I'm confident we're going to succeed 100%. I wonder what that will mean for the future of our culture and where that leads us politically. I guess we'll see. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. I think we're going to have a heck of a great show. You're not going to want to miss this one if what I think is happening is happening. So it'll be fun. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then.